Hello, my name's Jonny Ivey and welcome to this series that we've called Control Freak. Now when others hear that you're a control freak or a little bit OCD, in my experience they smile, but the desire to control my world really has been no laughing matter. On multiple, indeed many occasions, it's probably brought me to places too dark for this series opener. And while by God's grace I've come a long way, my crave for control is hardly a thing of the past. It wasn't long ago actually that I was away in the Peak District for a 5-day study residential, and I had just sat through a seminar on Jesus' glory as revealed in his transfiguration, and I was listening but I heard absolutely nothing. I was present but I wasn't there in any meaningful sense. And why? Well, to put it bluntly, because I was convinced that the symptoms in my legs, in my muscles, in pretty much every part of my body at that time was a sign of a life-threatening disease. But even that seems to sanitize it somewhat. I was convinced I was going to die, and I was convinced I was going to die soon. You see, over the last 2 decades, my campaign against chaos and my craving for control has taken many different forms. Budgeting, weight loss, financial planning, diary management. And in such cases, I've been able to convince myself that just with a little bit of effort, I really can subdue my world. But perhaps this is why health anxiety has had such a crippling effect on my life. Because there really is nothing that I can do. There's no Excel spreadsheet or week plan that I can exercise any kind of dominion over to avoid a freak cell mutation or malevolent misfire in my brain. I'm at the mercy of an untamable world, like a sitting duck flapping its wings to no avail. And perhaps it's this very fear, or as I found out recently, the very rare cyst sitting at the base of my spine, that has meant that relatively few days have gone by in my life without my experiencing some new pain, some new ache, some new twinge. My restless mind interprets those symptoms as inevitable signs of my impending demise. For some reason, convincing myself that I'm facing the worst case scenario is better than not knowing one way or another. If it's got a label, then it can be diagnosed. If it can be diagnosed, then it can be managed, responded to, controlled. Apparently, the worst news is not a world-shattering illness. It is a world that is scarily out of my control. And that particular instance I spoke about, the concern was motor neurone disease, due primarily to the near constant muscle twitches and weaknesses that I was feeling in different parts of my body. But over the years, it's been different things. Stomach pains have been to me sure signs of bowel cancer. Headaches have undoubtedly been brain tumors. The doctors send me for tests and scans, but there's never a diagnosis, only the reassurance that it's nothing to worry about, at least not this time round. But the worry continues because who knows what tomorrow might bring. In a vain attempt to achieve some kind of dominion over an uncontrollable future, I wake up to an unsolicited assessment of my survival chances, taking stock of the current symptoms and sensations. How does it feel this morning? Has the pain or the weakness moved to your right side too? Perhaps that's a good thing. Weakness in only one side is a good thing, right? But why do you feel dizzy? Maybe that's just the anxiety that you're feeling. Try and relax and see if it's still there. No, I'm still feeling dizzy. But were you relaxed enough? If only such attempts to restore order could spit out any kind of definitive answer, I'd be at peace. But to date, they never have done. And so restlessness rules the day, weeks, and at least in my case, years. People may smile at my being a control freak, but I've never found it fun, or indeed funny, in the slightest. Now, to be clear, health is not the issue, and this isn't a series about anxiety. The issue at stake here is control, and my own mortality is simply the most effective reminder of how little of it I have. Our inability to tame our world brings with it a whole raft of restlessness that gnaws and chews at our minds. You know, what if I lost my job? What if my kids are being bullied in the playground? What will happen if I don't finish this or that on time? What if I fail? We wrestle daily with financial fears, reputational fears, vocational fears, social fears. Our minds run amok with both promised and perceived threats. And behind all the particular evaluations of the day, the risk assessments and their gloomy conclusions, it all boils down to one controlling question, the answer to which we're all desperate to know. In my experience, it's usually the question I arrive at when the overwhelming weight of an uncontrollable world bears down so heavily upon me that my sheer powerlessness to do anything just feels crushing. It's the question I often ask the ceiling in a whisper as I lay on my bed at the ends of weeks of self-inquisition and fear. It's the fretful question of a child looking for parental consolation. And it's this: will everything be okay? Will everything be okay? All those issues that my heart wrestles with and that my mind chews over, the relationship, the unemployment, the marriage, health, kids, what people may think of me, well, will it all be all right in the end? And what can I do to make sure that it is? Just saying those questions, just articulating it in that way, indeed personally helps me grasp how almost every day of my life is an attempt to engineer my circumstances to that time when I can truly sit down and say, yes, everything is as it should be. Everything is worked out as it should have done. Everything's under control. But that's a fantasy. And yet it's a fantasy that my heart seems so easily to believe. I so often behave as though all the effort I expend on emotional wrangling and precise planning will bring about such a time. But it won't. Never will I have a complete control over my life. And without it, if I'm honest, the world feels scary and I feel unsafe. And let's face it, whoever we are, and whatever our battle with control looks like, however much or how little we despise chaos, we all feel unsafe. We lack security. Perhaps your own control issues make my now 2-decade battle with health anxiety look rather tame. You've experienced the depths of anorexia, or your OCD locks you up in your bedroom each day. Or perhaps you're listening to this simply hoping that it might just help you chill out a bit about life after exams, or go to bed without checking twice that the door's locked properly. Or you've got the daily pressure of not being able to secure an income or a relationship or peace of mind amidst so many unknowns in the future. You see, one of the core assumptions of this series is that our desire and control is not the preserve of one category of human being. Rather, it is the unfortunate diagnosis of every human heart. Whether you more routinely experience the craving for control when looking at a budget spreadsheet, or rehearsing a difficult conversation in your mind, or running for a train, or whether your pursuit of control is so entrenched that you cannot eat a meal without counting its calories, or you lie so often in order to kind of control the narrative that you've forgotten both how to tell the truth or even what the truth is. Or you feel paralyzed by fear of the future. From the mundane to the massive, the craving for control in our lives affects us all. No matter who we are or how much of an issue we consider this to be, we're all vulnerable. We're all scared in this world, so we want some degree of dominion to shore things up. And this is so important to acknowledge, because so long as we're scared, we can't ever experience that precious gift for which God created us, joy. Joy and fear are poor bedfellows, and in fact I don't think they've ever shared a bed at all. So if we're going to experience the joy that God created us for, each one of us has to face this issue of control head on. One of the much cited reasons for the success of the Alcoholics Anonymous program is its conviction that an alcoholic must acknowledge their addiction and admit their absolute powerlessness to change apart from outside intervention. They cannot change themselves. new participants integrate themselves into a graciously welcoming fellowship with the words, "Hi, I'm Jim," if your name's Jim, of course, "and I'm an alcoholic." And for our purposes, I suggest something similar. A way forward requires us to acknowledge that we are both addicted to control and that without outside intervention, we cannot change ourselves. Hi, I'm Jonny, and I'm a control freak. I'm scared. I need help. Have a go if it helps. It's in the quiet of your own mind. As I said above, that the smiles and the reassuring pats on the back just simply aren't going to cut it. We need something better. And the reason we're doing this series is that we truly believe that the God of the Bible has given us that something better. He has given us himself in the person of our Lord Jesus Christ. Through his outside intervention, he has graciously welcomed us into the fellowship of the church, a welcoming community of recovering addicts. And all of this changes everything, not only in how it recalibrates our daily desire for dominion, but also in how it holds out the hope of change, not as a possibility, but as a promise. Imagine if your first waking thought in the morning was the peace of knowing that whatever the day had in store, nothing could ultimately harm you. Imagine if flicking through the news on your phone was informative, but that it never made you feel insecure or fearful or restless. Imagine a world where you never felt you had to convince anyone of your way, where you never went to bed with thoughts racing through your mind and where decisions didn't frighten you for all of their possible implications. Imagine a world where you weren't frantically holding out for someone to give you the decision or outcome that you so desire. Imagine having even a measured steadfastness as you enter the hospital for those test results, or holding loosely to how the next 5 years turn out in your life, or receiving your present circumstances above all simply as a gift. Imagine the experience of being totally secure in all you do, all you say, all you have, all you are. That'd be a really, really good life, wouldn't it? Well, I'm sure after kind of hearing some of my story so far, you won't be surprised to hear that I'm hardly known for my optimism, let alone my idealism. But what if we have every reason for optimism? What if this kind of life is not idealistic, but simply is the Christian life to which we've been called through the very precious promises of a good, good Father and sovereign King who not only plans for our good, but delivers it through all the circumstances he brings into our lives? What if he doesn't promise to lift us immediately out of the precarious world of cancer, car crashes, and cost of living crises, but instead calls us into a kingdom that cannot, like our lives in this world, be shaken? You've got to bear with me as we navigate a few sessions of diagnosing the depths of the disease that control has brought into our lives. This will allow the scalpel of God's word to really cut deep. And that's necessary, for it's only by that depth that we'll be able to grasp the glories of Jesus Christ, whose love goes deeper still, and by whose gentle care any wounds inflicted on our troubled souls are bound and healed completely. If our time together reveals only the faintest glimpse of this Jesus and all that he has won for us and all that he is for us, then our time together will have been more than worth it, for myself as much for anyone else.